Art style is an important part of an artist's identity, as not only does it communicate tone and give the end product a splash of uniqueness, but it also allows for an artist to leave their unique artistic DNA in their final piece. By studying someone else's art style and working in it, you can replicate the aspects of their work that make their art unique. By drawing in someone else's art style, it allows you to add to your own process and render things in a way that you might not have considered in the past. Through my experience drawing in the official Pokemon style for the past few years and creating my Fakeamon projects, I've seen this firsthand, as this exercise has helped me build my artistic skills, especially in the realm of digital art. I can also tell how my aspects of drawing in that style have limited my growth in ways. Artistic style is important, yes, but to many artists, especially beginner artists, it can often be a crutch that limits your growth and creativity. So many beginner artists use the excuse of, "that won't look good in my style," to mask their lack of confidence in drawing certain things. It's important to know that art style is a fluid tool that is meant to help you create anything you want. And not only should you use multiple styles often, but your style should evolve over time to reflect the different artistic projects that you take on. Okay, John, how does this relate to the quote-unquote realistic Bulbasaur in the thumbnail? Well, I'm getting to that, sort of slowly, but I'm getting there. You see, in diversifying the projects that I've been tackling on this channel, and starting the process of drawing the many different alien species that will inhabit the universe of History of the Future, my original sci-fi world-building series, I was reminded of one of my old art styles that has sort of been left by the wayside, at least in the context of this channel. In high school and early college, before I ever made the switch to digital, I usually favored a sketch realism style that was highly reliant on texture, realistic lighting, and reference. One of my old personal projects was reimagining creatures from stylized media like Pokemon and Ben 10 and drawing them as if they were creatures that could be found in the real world. Although this idea is not unique to one artist, I did take a lot of inspiration from the Pokemon realism artist R.J. Palmer. And even though faint, you can see the DNA of his ideas in some of my older art. In short, I've always wanted to use what I call my nature field guide art style to reimagine the original 151 Pokemon as if they were creatures that existed in the real world. Not quite by going the Palmer route and adapting these designs into real-world animals and plants, rather by using the knowledge of Pokemon's inspirations and the aspects of stylization to reverse engineer the realistic looks that the existing Pokemon style is already communicating in its more stylized way. For this first set of videos, I'm going to tackle each of the Kanto starter Pokemon individually. And if y'all like it enough, I can keep going and go through the original 151. Well, I guess I can do all like 1,000 Pokemon, but that's going to be a more long-term goal. We'll see if that ever comes to pass. I'm not going to promise anything. But for today, we're going to start with Pokedex number 1, Bulbasaur. The original starter trio is said to be based on common household pets. And although Charmander and Squirtle's inspirations are readily apparent, being a salamander and a turtle respectively, Bulbasaur's inspirations are a little more vague. Due to its animations in the Let's Go games, most people agree that the Bulbasaur line are frogs, and although that fits with their common pet themes, judging by the claws, fangs, and ear horn things, that is definitely a very loose interpretation of what a frog is. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what Bulbasaur's full inspiration is supposed to be, and I think that's the point. When drawing realistic interpretations of Pokemon, it's important to remember that at the end of the day, Pokemon are pocket monsters, not animals. And although you can draw them as animals, that's not my goal. I ended up giving Bulbasaur the body of a tortoise, as the slow, bulky features could easily be stylized into the more pudgy shapes of the original design. These things that I think are supposed to be ears, I interpreted as horns, as although I am trying to remain faithful to the original concept, adding ears would probably have just been a touch too weird, at least for a starter. The bulb on its back I interpreted as the bud of a flower, as seeing where it goes in its evolutions, it's pretty obvious that that's what the original is trying to be. So here is my interpretation of Bulbasaur, the seed Pokemon. For the pose of these Pokemon, I used the Generation 5 sprites as inspiration, as I feel like those designs translate the spirit of the individual Pokemon better than the Sugimori art or the modern models do. And one of the most important aspects of this project was trying not to lose the original Pokemon's personality through the process of translating the original into this realized version. So going on from the base inspiration of those Generation 5 sprites, Ivysaur was a bit of a challenge, and I actually had an original redesign that I scrapped in favor of this one. The Gen 1 starters have a lot less continuity between forms, and I had to let that aspect of continuity go pretty quick. The bulb on Ivysaur's back blooms partially in this form and looks almost like a rose in the original, so I used the reference of rosebuds to influence my design. Though the leaves around the rose are obviously meant to be ferns in the original, I changed that for a more tropical broadleaf sort of look, both to let it feel more cohesively tropical, as the Kanto region is sort of tropical/subtropical, but also because honestly drawing the individual ferns would have been a lot more work, and I had to simplify them for my sake. The nubs on the head are more obviously ears in this stage, so in order to keep with my original interpretation of these being horns, I made them a little more concave so that they could have the same shape. So here is my interpretation of Ivysaur, the seed Pokemon. Though I've seen a lot of depictions of realistic Venusaur in the past, and most of them represent the plant on its back as a corpse flower, I chose to forgo this design both because the original looks more like a palm tree with long flower petals, and also because there is another Pokemon in the first generation that is straight up a corpse flower, and that is Vileplume. The body shape actually stayed way more faithful to the original than I thought it would, but I used the aspects of stylization to interpret what the face might look like in a more natural light. I interpreted the heavy round eyes as deep set in their sockets, and let the protruding fangs be inspired by crocodiles in their general arrangement. It is important to remember that a good cartoon artist will use abstract shapes to convey more complex ideas, and the addition of more teeth may be a simplification of a more complex jaw that this hypothetical original creature might have. I didn't go super far with that idea, but that is to say, I gave it a few more teeth. Drawing this line was a real exercise in implementing real-world biology without imagining them as an existing creature with some extra features. I said it once already and I'll say it again, but it's important to remember that these are monsters, and if they look monstrous and scary or like something that wouldn't exist in the real world, that's okay. I used the same idea of simplification and stylization to interpret the pattern on the tree/flower thing that the original may have been trying to represent, favoring a more complex naturalistic pattern in favor of adherence to the original, as I feel like this interpretation in a roundabout way is more faithful to the original design than copying the pattern one for one. You'll see I did this with the skin patterns of Bulbasaur and Ivysaur too, but I used these ideas of these simple shapes being stylizations of more complex patterns. So here is my interpretation of Venusaur, the seed Pokemon. This is a project that I've wanted to do for a while, and one that I've started on multiple times in the past, but never quite gotten to posting a video. I'm glad I started now because part of me thinks that I was never going to do this in the first place, as I kept sort of pushing it off and off and off. But I'm going to release these videos alongside my existing projects, either going between my weekly uploads or, in cases like this video, supplementing a video that was supposed to come out today, but was delayed because of my desire to rework some of the art, beyond what my original time frame would allow. Cooking up a few of these videos both allows for me to have something easier on the back burner in case I miss an upload like this week, but also this allows for y'all to get more Pokemon content, which, even though I'm not a PokeTuber, I do know that that's what 90% of you are here for, which honestly, that's just fine with me. That's not to say that these videos are easier to make than my Fakemon content per se, rather that I find adaptation to be a more streamlined process, and it's easier for me to get these out faster than my original or semi-original content. Thank you as always to my patrons STE, Alan Michael White, and Vex. who make projects like this possible for me to justify committing more and more time to. Your support really does mean the world, and it allows me to do these videos more often. And if anyone wants to join them in their support of the channel, you can join today and get access to my content early for as little as $3 a month. So as expected, going in Pokedex order, y'all should expect Charmander next. But until then, thank you for watching. If you like this video, then leave a like, and if you want to see more like it, then subscribe, and turn on the bell to get notified when I upload next.